Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah.
Week 2 in Rhode Island featured 4 games that finished in single digits. We're here to break down all 6 games, all 12 teams from the summer 2024 season. We have a 3-man crew, so 2 plus me today, Kyler and Matt standing by. And 1 game on each night, coincidentally, both at 8 o'clock there in Warwick, were the closest games from week 2. On Monday night, the Crooks and Road Dogs played to a 2-point finish where the halfway Crooks got their first win. And on Tuesday night, Lob City in overtime by 1. So that's kind of where we're going to start here. The defending champs, Lob City, needed everything. They needed some of their guys to show up. They needed some key buckets. They ended up missing some free throws down the stretch. So did the Air Mambas. They had their chances. We're going to really go in depth on that one, and we'll start there. It is Lob City winning and handing the Air Mambas their first loss, 76-75. We'll get the box score up there in a second. But as I pull my notes here, it was a tied game with over 2 minutes to go, tied at 64. Let's kind of get through regulation. We'll go to Kyler. We'll break it down, kind of what happened at the end of regulation. We'll get to overtime. I'll kind of give you some more play-by-play, and then we'll go to Matt and kind of how the overtime played out. But it was an awesome atmosphere. It was a crazy, game, crazy finish, and both teams, I'm sure, will learn a lot and take a lot from a game like that early in the season. Like I said, tied with over 2 to go. Lob hit 2 free throws with under a minute left to go up by 4. Lob was up by as many as 5 with 30 seconds left after Joe Secator split 2 free throws. Aiden Dozos, who had a huge game, again, we'll get to the stats kind of in a second, fouled on a 3-pointer down by 5. He made 1, missed the 3rd one and got his own rebound. Missed a 3, but then his team got the offensive rebound. So after a whole scrum, it was Lob by 2. So they ended up getting 3 points that possession, 69-67. Lob got fouled, made 1 of 2 free throws again to go up by 3 with just 14 seconds left. And then the Mambas took it inside, so we're kind of finishing up regulation here. A quick layup with 9 seconds left by Mario Valerio to cut it to 1. They fouled again Lob City. So Lob City at the free throw line. Still with 9 seconds left, they fouled right away, and Nuri Mahmoud missed them both. And so then the Air Mambas had the ball, they advanced it, and Lewis got fouled on a dunk, so we're still in regulation here. So now it's the Air Mambas with 2 seconds left at the free throw line after all of that, with a chance to make both and take a lead in the final 2 seconds. Lewis misses the first, makes the second, and then Lob City doesn't even get a shot off. They advance it. 2 seconds left in a tied game. They don't even get a shot off before the buzzer, like I said. So, Kyler, that's the end of regulation. Lob was up 5. That lead goes away. They ultimately don't get a shot up, and now we're looking at overtime. So just that last minute, what happened? And that's kind of how I started my interview with Cody Crawford, too. What just happened? But in regulation specifically, what happened?
Yeah, it was sloppy play by both teams, really, but it just makes you think that this was Air Mamba's shot to win this game, right? Everything was going wrong for Lob. Joseph Secator is missing a free throw. That never happens. 0 for 2 for Nuri Mahmoud. They had chance after chance after chance to put this game away. I mean, Colin Burns didn't even turn up. The game started with just 4 people. They had so many opportunities, and you just felt like this was the game for them to pull one against Lob, and for them to falter and not be able to. That's telling for playoffs and for any future big games for both Lob City and for Air Mambas.
And that is exactly what Cody Crawford said to me yesterday / this morning. Like, for us to get that win with who we started with, and the Air Mambas were up by double digits, I believe, early. Very early, because you can see there the first quarter was Lob by 1, so they erased it. But the Air Mambas came out swinging, was I'm pretty sure the exact words Cody Crawford used to me. And you can see there Joe Secator, 24 points, not the most effective shooting. Almar Sabat, 22 and 7 for 11. He made 8 free throws. He was big, and he made some big plays down the stretch for Lob City as well. And you see Cody Crawford there with 13. Let me kind of go over some more stats here, and we'll get into this overtime. Aiden Dozos, as I talked about, 28 points, 5 threes. And when he's hitting threes, which we're going to get to in a second, he hit a couple big ones, and one in overtime specifically that gave the Air Mambas the lead in overtime. So they were up 1 in overtime. when he's hitting those shots, he's so hard to defend. 5 of 13 from 3. I'm sure he would have liked to make more, but then you have to get out on him, and that goes for a lot of players, where then he's able to kind of go by you and get downhill and create some 4-on-3 opportunities for his team. Luis Ramirez, we talked about the big rebound. He got fouled. He split the free throws. He hit a couple threes as well and was big for them. 22 points and 8 rebounds. And Mario Valerio, 3 threes as well. So the Air Mambas kind of got a lot of what they needed to go their way. And let's get to overtime, and then we'll go to Matt. So overtime's only 2 minutes. Both teams were kind of milking the clock a little bit. It was Lob City by 2 in the overtime. Aiden Dozos pulled a 26-footer. It was behind the three-point line, 27-footer, and hit it with under 30 seconds left to give the Air Mambas a 1-point lead, 75-74, and Lob City doesn't take their one timeout. Gets the ball in, goes right down. Sekator finds Nuri Mahmoud for the dunk to put him up 1, which would ultimately be the winner. The Air Mambas call their timeout, and at the end of overtime, now down 1, Luis Ramirez, with under 10 seconds left, gets a look at a 3, comes up short. They end up fouling because Lob gets the ball. Lob misses the second free throw. No timeouts, 2 seconds left. They have to huck it up. It actually hits the ceiling, and Lob escapes by 1. So Matt, kind of talking on that. In the overtime, which is super short, I know kind of intentionally, so it's a whole different game in overtime, and that's kind of silly to say because it's overtime. But that whole game in general, Matt, the Air Mambas were right there and just never really able to hold on because they did have a lead in that overtime. So what happened in that overtime from what you saw?
I just thought Lob City, they were executing more, getting back defensively more, not... During the game, I thought they were very complaining towards the refs a lot. When they weren't getting their calls, they were getting frustrated, not getting back on D, and just giving up easy buckets to the Air Mambas. And I think in overtime, they got together and said, listen, got to focus on what we can control. And they did what they normally do, and they got out with the win.
Yeah, exactly. And it was key that they did exactly what they had to do, because Air Mambas, with that timeout, really, really made it difficult for themselves. Maybe that's because they were more stressed. Their head wasn't in it as much as a cool, calm, collected Lob City. If they had saved that timeout, not only would they have free throws, but even if they had missed it in that last 2 seconds where they had the ball, they could have called the timeout and got a better shot off. I really inexplicable timeout right there.
And so the one that he's talking about, I talked about Lob City being up by 1. After that dunk by Nuri Mahmoud. The Air Mambas came down and they had their back to the basket. It was a little scramble play going on, and they called timeout when they were actually about to get a foul call, but you don't want to lose the ball because there's a ton of people in a close area. So they called the timeout, not really knowing they were about to get a foul call, which would have been 2 free throws. That was their last timeout with about 9 seconds left. They come out of the timeout. Luis Ramirez misses the 3 like I talked about, but having that timeout, and sure, now it's easy, right? We're here the next day talking about it. But having that timeout after the missed free throw by Lob City down by 1 with 2 seconds left, that's the dream, right? You get to advance the ball, and now you have a better chance than they had to get a shot up to win the game. Hindsight's always, 2020, right? It's whatever they say. But, that's where, everybody makes mistakes. And sure, I'm sure the Air Mambas would like to have that timeout back. Lob City's been in games like this, in this league, where it is a little different and the rules are a little different. We were saying before we came on, the game goes so fast. You think it's fast when you're playing. The last 2 minutes feels like it takes forever when you're watching. When you're involved, and my position a lot of time is semi-coaching, my team. And so I've been in a lot of those positions, and it's flying by. There's no time to think about if I do this, what's going to happen if I do this? Should I do this now? Call the timeout. There's none of that. It is moving so fast. And so obviously, you want to take care of the ball when you have it. So that's what the Air Mambas did. But it's always, I've learned you always want to save the timeouts as long as you can. I know that sounds simple, but that's really important in the fourth quarter and overtime. So a great, great game, a Legacy Leagues classic, as Cody Crawford called it. Shout out to the Air Mambas. They'll be getting some love in the power rankings. That was me last week, kind of taking into account some of the past. But they have some new players, and they battled in week 2, that's for sure, against the defending champs. Let's get to that other game I teased at 8 o'clock on Monday night. and talk about the halfway crooks sneaking out a win. And so it is the halfway crooks taking down the road dogs. Let's get the score right here, 68-66. We'll get to those stats in a second, but the halfway crooks kind of jumped out early. It was a struggle in the second quarter, as Jared Hansen himself said in the interview. And then the road dogs were able to get a little momentum and get a lead. And then I'm going to throw it to you guys right away because Charles Correa after the game was like, I don't know what the heck just happened or how we did that. It was another one of those moments of like, how? So let's go to Matt first on this one, and then we'll flip the order. Matt, I know there was some fouling, right? There was making some shots down the stretch. Of course, that's how close games end up going. But how were the halfway crooks able to hold off the road dogs, who had way more subs than the halfway crooks? How were the halfway crooks able to win and beat the road dogs?
I thought it was, at the end of the day, just their discipline throughout the game, staying disciplined on defense, hustling, not taking stupid fouls, not getting into the, stuff with the refs, wanting calls, not getting their way, and just staying focused on winning the game and doing what they could do to win, Also hitting clutch shots at the end of the game was something big for them. In the fourth quarter, they made a lot of good threes that would give them back the lead when they were losing it, made a lot of good rebounds, a lot of good defensive plays. Just the chemistry looked like it was there with them and just seemed like they wanted it more, I thought. And I thought the play from Hansen really stepped up late in the game, just taking the ISO ball, going to the hoop hard, tough, getting foul calls, going to the line, just getting it done, getting gritty.
Yeah, and I lived it. We'll go to Kyler in a second. So I didn't watch this one back. I lived it. That's enough. So I don't have the exact play-by-play, but a lot of fouls both ways down the stretch. So a lot of free throws for both teams. You see there Jared Hansen, 18 points and 10 of 12 from the line, including some big ones at the end. He kind of missed one on purpose. So really, 10 for 11 is more accurate because he missed it with the time about to run out, so they really couldn't get a shot off to win the game as easily for the road dogs. But a lot of that, great point, a lot of getting to the hoop, a lot of securing the rebounds for the halfway crooks. And I'm kind of curious, the rebounding margin here, so 27-22 for the crooks, which feels about right. I mean, I know we are pretty accurate with the stats, and you guys do a great job. That feels right. The halfway crooks by a little, 22-15 defensive rebounding, and the road dogs actually got more offensive rebounds, probably just having that extra pep in their step. Yeah, Kyler, in this one, I mean, you see Mark Washington, 4 threes and 19 points. Shaq Ardrey was huge, was able to really get whatever he wanted going to the basket and only took 6 shots. I'm not calling anybody out because he had a good game, and I wish I could do some of the stuff he can do, but it feels like the road dogs had a blueprint to kind of put away the halfway crooks and were just never able to land the knockout punch. The crooks hung around, made one extra play. I got a rebound, shout out myself, right? Called the timeout and kind of secured it, where on that play, it was a missed free throw by the halfway crooks, right? No, we were shooting on this end by the road dogs. The road dogs missed a free throw and had 2 tip-in chances in the final seconds to go up by 1 in a 1-point game. So that's how close. It was 2 plays at the rim. That's how close it was from the road dogs being up 1 and things being completely different. But what'd you see, Kyler, as far as kind of the road dogs and what they did?
Yeah, what I saw was that this game shouldn't have been close. The road dogs are the better team here. Let's not get that wrong. But I think they were really hurt by how many subs they had. They were switching in and out. The whole lineup never got a rhythm. And because the halfway crooks are a team that's played together for so long, I mean, I knew they had a sub that hadn't been there in a while, but had only 5 people on the court. They were in a rhythm. They were in a flow, playing smart, fundamental basketball the entire game, whereas the road dogs didn't look collected at all, were making mistakes, costly turnovers that didn't allow them to use their speed and strength to pull away, and ended up dropping a game that they really shouldn't have.
I cannot let you get away with that. The halfway crooks won the game, and on that night, we're the better team. That's how this works, whether you like it or not. But no, and talent, body-wise, talent-wise, I think not getting in a rhythm is fair. I think the road dogs would say that, and that is a challenging part when you have so many subs and so many options like they do. So I'm teasing, obviously, but we'll see the power rankings, right? We'll see how this goes, and that's what that's about, where it's, the standings are what they are based on wins and losses, and that's ultimately what matters. But the power rankings are more like if these teams played again right now, so, maybe after week 3, the Road Dogs look better, the Halfway Crooks, look the same, and sure, the Road Dogs jumped them at that point, even though when they played, it's a week-by-week thing. Not having Dom Langston, obviously a bigger body for the Halfway Crooks, and he played great in week 1, so shout out to him. We can do that all day with every team, right? If we had this guy, if this guy showed up, if this guy played better, 2-point win for the Crooks, baby. That's what it's about. But very excited if these two teams meet again. These are two of the teams in the mix, right, that we could see in a semifinal. That, God forbid, we see it in a quarterfinal. That's like not fun, right? That's a semifinal or a final matchup, it felt like. And to be honest, kind of to go back quickly, same with Lob City and the Air Mambas. That felt like a playoff game. I'm not sure what round. We'll see kind of where the Air Mambas go from here. But they played like that was a big-time semifinal game. They were right there. We talked about it. The Road Dogs as well, right there, unable to land that knockout punch. And let's get to another one of those close games from week 2. All right, Washed Up Boys, 2-0. They are one of 3, I believe, undefeated teams. The Washed Up Boys take care of All Talk Sports, 73-69. We'll get those stats up here in a second. And they were, ecstatic in the interview. They were without their top scorer from week 1. So let's point that out. And so other people stepped up and helped them to get the win in week 2. All Talk Sports starts off with Lob City and then the Washed Up Boys. So 0-2, but that's almost not fair to them. They feel like they're a better, team than 0-2, but that's the record. And that's kind of how the schedule fell for them, so we expect more from them. But in this one, back to Kyler quick, and then we'll go to Matt. We'll just keep flip-flopping. The Washed Up Boys, 2-0. What did they do against, a team that's kind of similar in size, too, to them in All Talk Sports? What was the difference in that one for the Washed Up Boys?
The difference was the defensive lockdown play from the Washed Up Boys. I mean, every possession was All Talk Sports had the ball for 20 seconds, 25 seconds. They would either score or lose it, and then in 10 seconds, Washed Up Boys would be down the court, putting the basket in. Last week, I said All Talk Sports was a sneaky team that could surprise some people, but this game really worried me. They had no pace on offense, and they were really shut down, and they didn't have any other options. They stuck to the same strategy the whole game long, even though it wasn't necessarily working. They might have had the better shooters in this game, but because of how they were playing, because of lack of effort on defense and all that, they really, really had a disappointing display in my mind.
Yeah, and Matt, we'll get to you in a second. You can see there Mason Link with 20 and 6 threes. So you talk about the shooting, 10 of 32, 32%. That's kind of, I think, where All Talk. They're taking the threes, which is fine, right? That's one way to do this, right? You then need to make, sure, you want to make every one, but realistically, you need to make closer to mid-40s, threes, right? So if it's 32 threes, we're looking at, 15. So 5 more threes, you do the math, that's a win in this one. That's not how this always works, but more threes for them would have been huge. Daniel Hollowell as well with 16 and 6. Let me scroll down for those of you guys watching. Yeah, go ahead.
And I mean, they're shooting tons and tons of threes and not making them, and that's a knock on them. But I think that's just as much a testament to Washed Up Boys and how well they defended the paint. They were forcing All Talk Sports to shoot these threes that were low percentage shots and in the end didn't end up going in. So as much as we're dogging on All Talk Sports, I think this was a great defensive game by Washed Up Boys.
Yeah, let's get to Matt and the Washed Up Boys because they are the ones who actually won here. Leroy Brown, kind of a breakout game, 23 and 15, and it's funny. There's a lot of games where it's like, did he get off the bus? Is like my favorite line. Is like, sure, he's in the stat sheet, but was he playing? Like sometimes people are just coasting, right? But in this game specifically, Leroy Brown, Matt, he was there. He made sure we all knew he was there for the Washed Up Boys.
Yeah, definitely. There were a couple times I remember we had to tell him to stop hanging on the rim for a little bit, but I definitely thought, even though they're 0-2, I thought All Talk Sports came to play both weeks. They're definitely up against tougher competition to start and have had a tough schedule, but I thought both weeks they played pretty good defensively and good physical ball and were able to score, not easily, but they were able to get the points that they needed. And Washed Up Boys, I just thought they played a much better physical game than All Talk Sports did. I feel like that's kind of their identity going into this season, that they're going to play very physical on defense and in the paint offensively. I feel like they were taking a lot of layups, driving in to the rim, and just getting a lot of offensive rebounds too, and just putting them back up. And I just thought their physical play was the really big difference in this.
Yeah, and so Washed Up Boys too. Moise Rainford, 18 and 11. Jeremy Altume, hopefully I got that right, 18 and 7. So, kind of leading the way. Kevin Gonzalez there as well with 12 for the Washed Up Boys. And they're 2-0. We'll stop sharing that one. And next week, they get the Road Dogs. So I'm excited for that one. A Road Dogs team that could easily be 2-0, a Washed Up Boys team that is 2-0. And not to preview that too much, but it feels like both of those teams coming out of that 2-1 feels right. Like, cool, you're both of those teams should be 2-1 based on how they're playing. That's not always how this works, and that would imply, I'm picking the Road Dogs, and that's not the point. Just forgetting who's playing who. If both of those teams through 3 games were 2-1, we'd be like, yeah, that sounds right. Like if the Road Dogs fall to 1-2 after all of this, we feel like they're better than a 1-2 team. So hopefully that makes sense. Where I'm not bashing anyone. That just feels like those are 2 teams that could easily be 2-1 after 3 games. The other single-digit game from Week 2 was our last game of Week 2, the Skyhawks and Allwaves. So it is the Skyhawks getting their first win after, again, playing one of those teams, undefeated teams now in the Game Breakers in Week 1. They bounce back and get their first win, 81-74 over the Allwaves. We'll go back to Matt quickly. Again, it was the last game. It felt like it just ended, 16 hours ago now from when we're recording this. The Skyhawks shoot a lot. They made a ton of threes, and it was funny, like they were able to kind of use some of their attacking the rim and their paint presence, it felt like. Sure, they made a ton of threes, but they were able to kind of show a different side of some of the things we saw in Week 1. And that's what I asked them about. But what do you think about that? Kind of what flipped for them in Week 2?
I just thought in Week 2 they were hitting their shots a lot more, especially their corner 3. I feel like they made at least 12 or 15 of them yesterday, just getting their shots down and getting back on defense. And I feel like they caused a lot of turnovers too yesterday. Just either always were just being loose with the ball or just got into foul trouble, or I just thought they weren't very careful with it, and I feel like a lot of points in transition occurred during all those turnovers. But I really think all Waves played good, but the fouls are what really got them into trouble, and just having to play with that feeling. I'm pretty sure they had 2 guys with 5 fouls going into the fourth quarter, and having to just play lighter defensively because of that being in the back of your mind definitely had an effect on it. But I think Skyhawks played very well again. Shot their shots, made them, just played their game.
Yes, and sorry, I was muted and all thrown off. The Skyhawks, Noah James, 27 points, 6 threes by himself, and as a team, they shot 48% from 3. They made 12, so you were close. It felt like more. I agree with that, but they made 12 as a team. And for, shout out Omar Rahman, 18 and 6 rebounds for him. Elijah Morton, 17 and 3 threes for him. So that's kind of the Skyhawks plan. But you can see the Skyhawks still got out rebounded and kind of, so that's funny that they it's not the end all be all, but they did lose the battle on the glass and were still able to kind of sneak this one out. And it was a close game, as we can see here by quarter on the screen. But that was a lot of kind of coming back for the Allwaves, where I think the Skyhawks did open it up in the fourth quarter, and then not garbage time, that's not fair, but kind of when the Skyhawks thought it was over, it really wasn't, and the Allwaves got some shots to go. But no Jake Ashstetter for them. So we talked about him last week, one of their bigger bodies, and you guys haven't even seen Nicholas Montanino. He's another bigger body as well. So those two not being there against a team like the Skyhawks is kind of what we teased last week, right? Where can the Allwaves use their size against a smaller just team in the Skyhawks? And without those 2 players, they still technically won, right? They did win the rebounding margin, but it didn't feel like it was enough of an edge. And we'll go to Kyler, and then we'll kind of do the last two games. I'll split them up between you guys because they were wider margins. But Kyler, on this one, the Owl Waves fall to 1-1, I believe, and the Skyhawks are also 1-1. So two teams that kind of find themselves near each other in the standings. What'd you think about this one from week 2?
Yeah, I was really impressed by Noah James and his ability to bring the whole team up. He was cracking jokes. He was talking smack the whole game. And then with that, he led the team in points. He was such a great player for the Skyhawks. I think the Skyhawks just looked so much more organized than they did last week. And they were 10th in power rankings. And I really think there's a big drop off between 10 and then 11 and 12. And so really they were worst of the best, which is a little harsh on them, I think. So maybe they saw that, got motivated. They told us they were watching film to prepare, and they put in the work, and it paid off. And so high energy against a team that's very even with them, coming in 1-0. I thought it was a very impressive game.
Yeah, let's shout out the All Waves too. So Jawan Gamble, his first game, 21-9. He hit a couple threes. Josh DePina, 21-6. Terrence Gallo, 17-8 for the Owl Waves.
Yeah.
So
and Terrence Gallo, he can dunk. I was very impressed with Terrence Gallo. Again, with more players, I think the Owl Waves are a team that could surprise some people. Shout out to Aid Bright, head coach, who's too injured to play yet had to play in that start. Again, maybe if players get there on time next time, that could help them win more games too.
For sure, and it's funny. Let's get into these last two games, but I do want to talk about as our ending segment here, what teams have the most to gain in week 3. So you guys can start to pick a team that you want to talk about in a second, but not to overlook these last two games, which were blowouts, as it is fair to call them. But let's go to the Game Breakers getting to 2-0 and taking care of Velocity. 135-73, the Game Breakers continue to roll, continue to play without two of their bigger bodied players who are also very talented in Charles Alexander and Jose Mercado. And despite that, they're 2-0, and they take care of Velocity. Let's give this one to Matt, and then Kyler gets the other one. And when we talk about our opener for Tuesday night, but Matt, about the Game Breakers, you can go whichever direction you'd like. I'll get the stats up here, but they took care of business. And let's start with Hachi Amini's 67, 11 rebounds, 12 assists, and 11 steals. I was looking at it after. I was like, oh my goodness. A quadruple double with 67 points, Hachi Amini. But what about the Game Breakers impressed you?
Sorry, you cut out there for a sec, but I just was very impressed with the Game Breakers overall from the time the ball was tipped off to the end of the buzzer. They were going every single possession. They wanted to get points. They were going at the rim. They were taking threes. But it felt like Amini just couldn't miss the whole entire night. He had 67 points, and he took 44 shots and hit 29 of them. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. Shooting, how many threes did he take again? 17 threes. And he hit 9 of them. That's a lot. So that was big. I was also very impressed with Gian Avician's game. I thought his physical presence was very, very impactful, especially at the rim. He had a couple big alley-oop dunks that he finished on that were definitely making the highlight reel for the week. And I also, even though they were playing a very not as talented team as them, I thought they didn't look past them at all. They stayed focused to their game the whole time, stayed focused on the objective. Didn't matter to them who they were playing. They were going to put points on the board no matter what.
Taking care of business is the best way to put it. We talked about the Game Breakers there. Let's get to Velocity really quick. Brad Whipple, 23-9, some big plays for him. Ashton Alcock, 19 and 6 threes. Just, 16% from 3. When you're trying to erase a lead, as you can see there, a 14-point lead after the first quarter was still kind of, trying to feel each team out. And then by halftime, the Game Breakers blew it open and took care of business to improve to 2-0. let's get to Kyler and the other game, the Providence defense. They get their first win and take care of the Muffin Tops. It's a big win. Providence defense 101, Muffin Tops 28. We'll get the stats up here in a second. You know, the Muffin Tops, their shooting percentage is not great, and so they'll continue to work on that. Speaking of Providence defense, a tough loss last week to the Owlwaves, right, in week 1 to kind of kick off their season. They were still trying to figure each other out. They talked about it in their post-game interview, still trying to learn each other. So the Skyhawks are like, we have chemistry, we've played together, we hang out all the time, we watch tape. That's helped us. Providence defense is like, we also got the win and are still trying to figure each other out. So that's a good sign for them as well, Kyler. And, you know, you can touch on some of the players here. They're another one of those teams that may find themselves, you know, right in the middle of the power rankings right now, but definitely have some pieces to make some noise against the other teams around them in the standings. So what'd they do in week 2?
Yeah, I mean, they got fortunate to play a team of a lower caliber than them, but let's not take away from them. They were moving fast. They were very agile. I was really impressed with Juan Jimenez. I thought he played a really great game, getting to the paint, dishing the ball. He didn't even have the most points because that was Jacob Dorbor, who also played great. I think that it's tough when you're playing a team of lower quality than you to ease up on defense as the game goes on, keep your head in the game, that sort of thing. But they didn't have a quarter where they allowed more than 10 points, and that's a testament to the collectiveness that they had together and doing that better than they did last week. Again, it's tough when you're going up against a team that's power ranked 12. We'll see how much this even brings them up in the power rankings this week. But let's not take away. They played a great game. They won big, and that's great for them.
You can only play the team that's on the other end of the court, right? And so if you're the Providence defense, you take care of business and you keep it moving, 1-1, and now they're in the mix, right? And that's all you can ask for as we head into week 3, and we'll look at those matchups in a second. We are going to put you guys on the spot. Shout out to Frank Smith, 17 and 19 rebounds for him for the Muffin Tops. So, you know, you can see there by quarter, struggling for the Muffin Tops, but again, Providence defense able to take care of business and get the win. All right, guys, let's get to what team, and this is a really good opportunity. I'm kidding. It should not be my team in this one, but there's always a good chance, Matt, you will learn. A good opportunity to suck up to the host and pick the halfway crooks, but don't do it today. Which team in week 3 has the most to gain as far as the power rankings? So it's all made up anyway, but we'll get their answers in a second. All right, Kyler, which team, week 3, has the most to gain if they were to get a win next week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that schedule in front of me, so it's a little bit tough. But a team for me that I think really needs to show up are the Road Dogs. Tough loss this week to a team that I personally said I thought they were better than. So for me, it would be nice if they could get this win. Their week 1 win against Velocity. Again, there's no such thing as a freebie win in the Legacy Leagues, but they were going up against a team that's very lower down in the power rankings. So now going up against the Washed Up Boys, a team who wants to prove themselves, really wants to make their mark in the league. I think this is a great chance for them to solidify themselves as a top 5 team, as maybe even a top 4, top 3 team in the league.
Yeah, they were right there last season, and you can see there the schedule up there. So it is the Road Dogs and Washed Up Boys Tuesday night at 8:15 in prime time, as we say, because it's kind of one team is coming in, one team is leaving, and there's some buzz in the gym. So we do love that. There is not a typo. The Skyhawks are going to be playing both nights because All Talk Sports is actually on vacation, and then All Talk Sports in week 4 will play on both Monday and Tuesday night to kind of stay even. So it's the same matchup. So it is the Skyhawks twice. They will be taking on Providence defense on Monday, and then Skyhawks Air Mambas on Tuesday. So I'm in. Tuesday night, let's do this, and not to throw shade at any other team. Tuesday night we have Skyhawks Air Mambas. So 2 teams that are 1-1. Big game. Washed Up Boys Road Dogs, as Kyler talked about. And then the nightcap, Game Breakers and Lob City. So a rematch of the semifinals from the summer 2023 season. I mean, Yeah, Lob City, here we go. This is a big game for them. Not that they are going to say it, not that they're going to show that this is the regular season. Who cares? Game Breakers Lob City is must-see TV, and so that's a packed Tuesday night, so I can't wait for that. Matt, which team, and so to be fair, it may not be Lob City, right? They could lose, to the Game Breakers and not lose too much ground because of who they played, right? So I really like this question. Props to me. I'll pat myself on the shoulder on this one. It makes you guys work a little bit. What team, Matt, for you in week 3 has the most to gain?
I'd say the team with the most to gain would probably have to be the Air Mambas, just because of how close they came to defeating Lob City this week, and it was just a very close back-to-back game. And some can also say, they kind of let it slip through their hands kind of after, allowing a big lead to go away. But they're also playing a very good Skyhawks team who's coming off a big win against All Waves, and who just put up a great performance and will definitely be going up in the power rankings. And I just see this, if they can win this game and beat a good Skyhawks team, there should be no doubt that they can be one of the top 3 competitive teams in this league for the rest of the year and should sit at that top 3 rankings all year.
Yeah, and we talked about Providence defense and Skyhawks on Monday, Halfway Crooks and All Waves on Monday could be frisky as well. And then Velocity Muffin Tops. So, 2 of the teams kind of looking to jump each other in the power rankings and the standings. Whoever did the schedule, guys, and it was me, wow, freaking crushed it for week 3. We got a lot of good games. I'm excited for that. But yeah, and the way it works in the playoffs, the reason a lot of these games mean a lot, sure, you want your team playing the best. You don't want people getting hurt ever, obviously. The tiebreaker is head-to-head. And so if 2 teams finish with the same record later, we might look back to week 2 to week 3, and there's the difference in what could be a 5 seed or a 9 seed, right? And I was talking to Cody as well. The top 4 seeds actually get a bye because we have 12 teams. So it'll be 5 and 12, 6 and 11. It's kind of the March Madness pairings for the first round. And the top 4 seeds will get a bye to the quarterfinals where they'll play, 4 would play the winner of the 5-12, right? Think kind of like our normal bracket matchups, but the top 4 seeds get a bye. So that is something to play for, and that tiebreaker could matter in that 4-5, who gets a bye and who doesn't. So all the games always matter, but especially in the playoffs, that could shift, the matchups, that could shift which side of the bracket you're on. It's going to be a good playoffs anyway. We talked about 8, 9, 10 teams kind of seeming to all be in the mix in one way or another. Yeah, week 3 is going to be awesome. So guys, very good job. We're pushing 40 minutes, but hey, that's what happens when you get a Lob City Air Mambas overtime game, when you get a Halfway Crooks Road Dogs matchup that was skipped in the winter. So the first time those teams played, but a good one. And like I said, 4 games from week 2 were in single digits. I'm not sure there's going to be a blowout in week 3. I'd be surprised if one of those games kind of got out of hand. So again, week 3, a loaded slate of games. You can keep up to date with all the stats, standings, player stats, league leaders, all of that on the legacyleagues.com website. Social media pages at legacy_leagues. The live stream should be up. The recordings of those, you can watch tape. You can do your research as analysts, as other players, and follow the league that way as well. And we'll have top plays coming, power rankings coming. And this is the postgame show. This is the podcast. Matt and Kyler, good job. And everybody, thanks for listening and following along.